It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, February 17th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content. It is not sure we're going to see hockey as good as that USA Canada game for a long time.
I think we'll see something else.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 plus years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, it is Four Nations in high gear right now. I am coming to you from Boston prior to the final doubleheader day on Monday. And it has been, I think, a really fascinating tournament so far. I think started off a little questionable. I don't know what is happening here. Like, is this going to be good? And it has ramped up to 11, I think.
It did. The only thing is with the three fights, I went back and I had interviewed Ron Wilson, Paul Holmgren, Mike Richter when they all were going into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame and talked about the '96 World Cup. And Ron Wilson said before that game started, right at the faceoff, he told Joel Otto to go and cross-check Eric Lindros and see what happens. That was the quote.
Right.
See what happens. And then everything got combustible. Now, not to the point where there were three fights like this,
Yeah.
but this is the same playbook because Bill Guerin was on that team. Keith Kachuk was on that team.
Right. I mean, there's a little bit of history repeating itself. That,
Yeah.
of course, is about the USA Canada game that was on Saturday. And
Right.
that was definitely the highlight of the tournament so far. I think, as Flyers fans looking at it, I feel like we're either going to get Sanheim or Konechny in a
Yeah,
game.
you're never getting both.
Never getting both here. We will see. We'll talk a little bit more about Monday's games in the next segment. And we'll get to our nemesis of the week and a poll for this week coming up later in the show. Of course, Travis Sanheim checked into the lineup for the injured Shea Theodore. And Travis Konechny was sat in that game versus the U.S. For Bennett, who was very involved in that fighting at the beginning of the game, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Probably next game, because it's do or die, they're going to keep the same lineup. I expect them, except McCarr will probably draw in and Harley will probably
We'll
go home.
see.
Oh, yeah, that's the question.
Right. And so I did see Cale Makar skating,
Mm-hmm.
at the optional. There weren't many guys out there. So it was basically him and Jarvis out
Yeah.
there that I saw. So it was, yeah, it's definitely a question. But, as head coach John Cooper said, Cale Makar is a competitor and he wants to be in the game. And so he's doing everything to get himself into the position to be able to play. It'll be a game time decision, but we'll see for their game against Finland coming up today. But all of that aside, I think we can talk more about that USA Canada game a little bit there. With I thought it was interesting, with Bennett in the game, like that fourth line with Brad Marchand and Jarvis was essentially a bruiser line in a lot of ways, but with a high skill attached to it.
Right. Yeah, because Jarvis, that's not his game. Yeah,
Right.
I agree. I
Right.
think there was some effectiveness, but then I felt Cooper fell victim to put, like, he had Jarvis in late in the game and he
Yeah.
put him out there twice late in the game. And I was like, look, I know Seth Jarvis has a great shot, but that game was getting very physical. And I was surprised he stayed in that game instead of going with the bigger guys and the more known guys.
Right. And I think, I saw a lot of criticism of him and his choices that he made in terms of who to send out there and when, especially favoring the Tampa Bay Lightning players. So Point was out there, Sorelli was out there, Hagel and Point were out there for the OT, I think,
Hmm.
when maybe they shouldn't have been.
That's fair. That's fair criticism, but we know it's going to go that way. Like this is just
Sure.
part and
It's just,
parcel.
I think you have to say it,
You do,
right?
you do. It's definitely part and parcel. And I just thought, yeah, I don't expect anything different. Like he's not going to back. Cooper doesn't back down from anything, so he doesn't care what we think about that.
Right. Right. And I think, the other thing about that game was the way that Team USA was able to shut down Canada offensively. I mean, that was obviously the most important thing. In my head, I was like, well, how much does Torts have to do with that in terms of the defensive style of play that they put out there?
I think a little because he and Sullivan play similar systems, so I think a little
That's
bit of
true.
I think a little bit of that. I think we give credit to both, uh, except the kill, except for the McDavid goal. I mean, nobody
Well,
could stop
yes. I
that.
mean,
I mean,
McAvoy got smoked.
yeah, I mean, people were like, "Oh, you should have been in better position." You can't move that fast laterally when the guy's going 21, 22 miles an hour. Like you just can't. Doesn't matter who you are defensively. So that was nothing they can do. But after that, they got very physical. And this is where I think Torts only gets partial credit because
Hmm.
they got more physical than even a John Tortorella defense. They did.
Oh,
And
sure.
they were banging around everybody. And that's when Canada looked old. Marchand
Yeah.
was getting hit. He didn't do anything. Marchand didn't do Marchand things. Crosby got hit off his skates. McDavid got crushed by McAvoy, probably because when he got smoked, he smoked him. I mean, there was very little retaliation from Canada. There was a few hits. Doughty got taken off his skates. Now I know these guys came back from injury and some are banged up, but they're getting old compared to the U.S. team, and it showed on the forward side for them and the defense playing those forwards for the U.S.
Yeah, I agree. Canada had about 4 expected goals in that game, and they scored 1. So that's a
Yeah.
combination of really good defense and great goaltending,
Oh
and
yeah. Well, I mean,
that is
Hellebuck's the
exactly
best goalie in the tournament. Like
right, right.
nobody was gonna guess otherwise, and nobody was gonna predict that he wouldn't be. So yeah, I mean, that gives you an edge just going into the game and and the tournament. So that's a big deal for the US. I know that first goal that Hellbuck gave up in the first game, people were like, "Uh-oh." And it's like guys got to get warmed up
He's
like
not a
anything
guy
else.
I worry about in that
No.
circumstance. Now, Travis Sanheim played a little over 15 minutes of that game. He had to come into that game having not played in the
Yeah.
first game, and it's a big game emotionally. And
Yeah.
I think he did a solid job. I wouldn't say it was his best game I've ever seen from him, but
No.
I think given the circumstances and the adjustments and who he was defending, like I think he did a solid job, I would
Yeah,
say.
I think he was pretty good. I saw him get lost in the zone once or twice in the third period, but I,
Mhm.
I I felt like he was good and he was a good enough fill in. Uh, same with Harley. Both of them had to just kind of go in there.
Yeah.
Harley even with less preparation than Sanheim. So,
Oh, for sure.
I think they both did fine.
Yeah, I think so. Now you are a noted Binnington defender,
I
Russ,
am.
and it seems like they're going to keep Binnington
They
in,
will. I
but
mean, what is their
Cooper's
option?
Cooper's being a little cagey about it because he
He always
wasn't.
is cagey about that.
I know they all are. It's
Yeah.
fine, but I think an interesting thing that Travis Konechny said yesterday about Binnington. He said that he's a gamer. When you look at him, I played against him a bunch, and he's just one of those guys that's never quitting on plays. He's the last line of defense when you have that kind of confidence. And you trust him out there. And he said, he's going to do something big and give us a big moment. And I think he did have a few of those big moments in
He
that
did.
game. He just didn't have enough of those big moments.
Well, I mean, I think a lack of offense from Canada
Oh,
created bad
sure.
moments for him. Like,
Yeah.
that what was it? The Larkin goal, Chris Pronger pointed it out even better than they did on the broadcast, saying that, hey, when you go for that long change, the other defender's got to cover the center of the ice, and they didn't. So they hung out Binnington to dry on that one. There was nothing he could do on that one. He did give up one bad goal, but guess what? I mean, Canada only scored one goal. So, like, he only gave up
Yeah,
three. It's not like,
I know.
we're talking about a 5-goal game or something. So I don't think Binnington's the problem, and that's why I expect Cooper to go back to him. I think he is a battler. He may not be the prettiest goalie, but again, they passed on Thompson. They never spoke to him, so that's their problem. And then beyond that, what's really the option there? I think that's the issue, and that's why you go Binnington.
I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I just think
Yeah.
there's reason to think about making a different pick. I just don't know that they have a choice. I think you may be correct
I mean, the best thing that
about
could have
that.
happened to Canada is if they had a forward get hurt, they could have called Tom Wilson, who probably should have been there in the first place, who would have been able to police the U.S. in a lot of ways, and they're missing a guy like that.
Yeah. All right, we are going to talk more foreign nations and maybe talk about Finland and Sweden a little bit because they have some action coming up too. We'll do that coming up next.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that than with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you could stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you could even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app's easy to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, the FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
On tomorrow's show, we of course are going to recap both games from Monday, and we'll get to so much more than that as well. And we are going to have our mailbag on the Wednesday show. So get those questions in. You can email us at lockdownflyers@gmail.com, send us a message on any of our socials, or comment on our YouTube channel. Plus, we are going to have a very special guest for our Phantoms Tuesday on a Wednesday that day. We're going to talk to Maddie Campbell from Broad Street Hockey, who is one of the foremost Phantoms experts
Yeah,
in
real good.
the market. So excited to bring you that as well. Now, Sweden and Finland, it is really interesting having all three of the non-USA teams in a tie,
Right.
essentially,
Fighting it out.
heading
Yeah.
fighting it out. I think that it's a really good thing for this tournament, I think, to have it that way. I think that Sweden is probably just emotionally in almost maybe a more difficult position than Canada is right now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Finland's playing with house money. Sweden's not. There's pressure on them.
Yeah.
Some guys look better, though. Like Zibanejad only had 11 goals this year, but he had a nice goal the other day. Uh, Sweden's goaltending's been like iffy, and I didn't
Hmm.
expect it to be as iffy. So that's been an issue for them. And, I feel like they could get more scoring. And so we'll see. We'll see when, their life is on the line, how that goes. Guys like Eric Carlson and such stepped up. Some of the forwards did, but not enough, in my estimation.
Right. Now, uh, Gustafson was pulled
Yep.
because he was sick, not because
Okay.
of an injury. And so Allmark replaced him in the second and third period of their game against Finland, which, of course, as we know, ended in an overtime win by Finland.
Yep.
We'll find out for sure, but Sweden's coach said that it seems like Gustafson is feeling a lot better, so he should be playing in the game today. But again, it was a game time decision there for them. But I think that
He'll
was
have a
a tough
short leash, though.
situation.
Gustafson's going to have a short leash.
Yeah, yeah, especially, two saves on four shots on goal in that first period.
Yep.
And, maybe it's because he was sick, which is
Maybe.
fine, but still, like, it's a tough thing. And when it's like do or die, like it is for them, they're going to make tough decisions
Oh yeah.
in this game today. So against Team USA. But I think, especially facing a Team USA that is already in the final.
So
So,
they're gonna have different lines. They might sit some guys or at least play fewer
mhm,
minutes. Matthew Kachuk probably won't play. That's my guess.
correct.
And so
That
yeah,
is my guess too.
yeah.
So I think that is definitely going to be a factor there for Sweden. As far as Finland goes, I think, obviously when you play an overtime game like that and you win it and it's against your biggest rival, and then you have to go and play Canada next. I mean, that is a tough transition to make as well.
It is, but I think Canada has to go play them. Like I said, I think Finland's playing with house money, and I've seen enough other tournaments with Finland, even when you know that their talent may be less than the other countries, and this time it's definitely less. But guess what? They play that same strangling system that keeps the score down, and they stay right on you. And I don't think this will be a high scoring game. And they do have some firepower. Like Rantanen looks like the Rantanen he's supposed to look like outside of Rod Brind'Amour's system. And so that's dangerous. And so I don't love Lankinen as a goalie. I don't. I know he's having a really good
He
year this
he's
year, but
going to play the
I
game.
know.
Yeah.
I don't think they have much of an option, but he's certainly a guy that I kind of would feel a little iffy about, but I feel iffy about both goalies. So to be honest, it's probably a wash.
That's fair. That's fair. Now, interestingly, in the last game, Capo Caco was in
Yeah.
instead of Joel Armia, and because Armia had some bad penalties in game one, and I think that was absolutely the right move to make. It paid off. He scored a goal. Like I think they should stick with that.
Yeah, no question. Like I've always said, Kako has trouble getting the puck to the net, but if he's around the net when the puck is around, he'll score. And that's exactly how he scored in that one. And that's how he's going to score again because he's used to being benched. This guy went from being in the press box to being on the top line. He's used to all of that. The Rangers did all of that to him. And so nothing's going to really upset that guy. He probably feels great.
Yeah, and I think that, for Sweden versus USA as well, all the Swedish players that I talked about the intensity of play against Finland, and I think that will help them
Yeah.
in this upcoming game against Team USA. I talked to Ricard
Mhm.
specifically about that, and he was like very clear that a Sweden Finland game is more than enough
Right.
preparation to
No,
play
it's
Team
fair. I mean, that
USA.
game had a lot of hitting, and it picked up as the game went on.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I agree. I don't think that that's going to be an issue. Again, I just I look at the game and I'm like, if I'm Finland, I'm just like, you know what? I just want this game to be 1-1 going into the third, and that's
Yeah.
that's if it's like that, Canada is the one that's going to have all the pressure on them.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Now, we've seen two overtime games so far, right? We
Yeah,
saw that Sweden Finland OT that went beyond the 5-minute threshold that the NHL has. The Sweden Finland OT did not go past that threshold with Finland winning earlier, like about a minute and a half into
yeah.
the overtime. Like, how would you compare those two overtimes, and do you think they've informed anything about what the NHL should do?
No, the NHL will do what the NHL is going to do. They don't care about how the overtime's going in this. They don't look at this as something where they're going to change it. I was happy, I'm happy to see the longer overtime. I was the one that wanted 10-minute overtimes instead of 5. I just feel like 5's not enough, especially if teams are going to like sit back and not play enough play offensively. But that we saw some amazing overtime though so far in this
Yeah,
tournament, and better than almost everything we see in the NHL. So,
by
for the most
far. It
part, it's
just
just night and day.
Yeah, it just kind of reinvigorated my love for the 3-on-3 in a way
Right,
that I haven't in a long time. So
right.
I appreciate both of the overtimes, but
Hmm.
I do think that Canada Sweden OT was like just some of the most
Tremendous.
special hockey,
Yeah,
like
just
other than
tremendous.
the USA Canada game,
Yep,
obviously.
yep.
But I think, there's a lot there. I also asked the Team Finland coach about the change in atmosphere between Montreal and Boston, because obviously with them playing Canada, like the USA crowd is more likely to root for them in that
Right.
circumstance
Yeah, I think
versus the
it's gonna be tit
utter
for tat.
madness that was
Yeah.
in Montreal, right?
Yeah, I just, again, without getting too political, I don't think the US fans should boo the Canadian anthem. I don't think that proves anything. We'll
I
see if
don't know
that
that they
happens or not.
will, but
I
we'll
don't know if they
see.
will either, but people are talking about it like it could happen, and anything could happen. I'm not telling you what you should do. Like if you're going, do whatever you want, but I'm just saying I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting to see for sure at today's games how all of that goes. But yeah, it's been a ton of fun so far, and I can't wait for today's games. We will talk about them on tomorrow's show. We've got our Nemesis of the week and a special in-season poll question for y'all. We're going to talk about that coming up next. Life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one size all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same day coverage for up to $5 million with no medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. SelectQuote, they shop, you save. All right, so regular listeners slash viewers of our show on YouTube, going back into our off seasons, might remember that we do a weekly poll question. And given the longer break here, we thought we would throw one in mid-season here. And of course, it's for nations related. And want to get a temperature as to whether y'all out there are having fun watching it the way I am, the way Russ
Oh
is.
yeah.
And I think, we can read about it, but want to hear about it from you. So we want to know if you're enjoying it so far. Let us know if Flyers player participation is affecting your answer, the reason for your response, and if it's more or less fun than you thought it would be. There's multiple choice. You can select it's love it, it's okay, it's uninteresting, or it's boring and pointless. Those are your four options, but then please let us know all that other stuff
Yeah, if
in
you
the
like Ford
comments.
Sparking at Cooper, say that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I want to hear what your favorite parts of all of this is. Now, for our nemesis of the week, last week, Russ, you talked about the Super Bowl commercials, and there was this Carl's Jr. ad that was a little offensive, and it had a hangover burger being advertised, which is unoriginal in your opinion.
Pretty much.
And so, yeah, I still have not gone back to watch the ads from the Super Bowl
I
at
saw
all.
some, I didn't see a lot of them, I'll be honest. This was
Yeah,
a
I
year
was at a bar,
I was
so
less interested than usual. So I saw like probably 25% of them.
well, I was extremely interested, but I was also in a bar.
Right.
So
You can't do much
I
about that.
yeah, I could not really hear or focus on the ads where I was, but it was still a fun game, and enjoyed watching the parade and such. So glad the Eagles won the Super Bowl for sure. I last week talked about going from basically nonstop Flyers action because of all the games they were trying to cram into this grinding halt, and then doing this whole separate thing, this Four Nations tournament, and then figuring out how we're going to ramp back up for the rest of the NHL season, which may seem weird in comparison to what we've just watched. I think it's going to take a little bit to adjust back. So I think that still holds a little bit. Now, my nemesis this week, I teased last week that it might be something Boston related,
Hmm.
and uh, it's it's just travel related. I don't really have any beef with Boston particularly, but I'm so bad about eating on the road because I cook pretty much everything I eat. So having to like get takeout or eat out at restaurants a
Mm.
lot is very stressful for
Yeah, I
me,
bet.
and I can't figure it out. So there's a food court right next to TD Garden
Yeah.
that has looks like it has some decent options, and I want to try and figure out a way to like maybe make some oatmeal in the hotel room. But
There you go. I've done that.
that that is definitely my personal nemesis of the week,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, my small thing that's not on the Nemesis is on the Boston side. Love the city. Their pizza is pretty mediocre. I mean, that's just the way it is. But they
Yeah.
think it's great, but it's not great. Um, but my Nemesis is watching one of the games, and maybe it was on both of them, and then seeing an ad on the dashboards for dude wipes. And I was like, are you kidding me? But yes, dude wipes popped up. So I decided, let me learn a little bit about them. And their tagline is billions of butts wiped. And I'm
Oh
like,
my
they
god.
didn't put that on the dashboard, but I'm just thinking, imagine if they did a live read for that. Like I don't
Oh
know.
my god.
I mean, I saw this and I was like, why? And I understand there's ad revenue and everything else involved, but I'm like, this is a big tournament. Did you really have to use dude wipes? So that was my nemesis. Seeing that, I was like, just no. That's a no.
I think that exceeds the, paper towel brand that the PWHL uses to sponsor their power play, and it's like it is definitely a running joke there, but I mean,
That's funny.
good on them for getting a sponsor, I think that's amazing, but, like, when your power play is paper towel
Yeah.
related, I think
Yeah.
it's just it's just really funny, but it's also a lot of fun too, and I think that, it's good to get other people to pay for some of the stuff. So hopefully it
Sure.
makes it cheaper for the fans in the long run there. But is there anything in particular you are looking forward to about today's games?
I just want to see what the aggression's like. I, I thought players would bring it for this tournament. I don't know why people thought it would be like all-star caliber play. I never thought that. I know when they're putting on their sweaters what it's going to be like. And so I just want to see more of that. Uh, I don't care who wins, especially either one of these games, to be honest. So I'm just watching it and just seeing, show me good play. If it's high scoring, fine. If it's, low scoring, but it's physical and there's great goaltending, that's fine too. Let me just see really high standard level of play, but because I'm always one of these people that Olympic hockey is different than NHL hockey. And
Yes.
and so like there's two brands of it and I'm fine with it. I like the NHL brand better for a lot of different reasons, but this has been fun to watch, so just keep it fun.
Yeah, I think so. And I will say I'm slightly looking more forward to Canada versus Finland because I just think
That's fair.
the storyline has a little bit more drama there. But also, I'm looking forward to seeing how these teams have progressed from game 1 to game 3 together overall to see if how the chemistry is built,
Yeah,
if it's like more of like a well-oiled machine by the time we've gotten to this point, so that like the final will feel like just a quote unquote real game between real teams that have seemed to have always played together.
yeah, and the refereeing's been good, so I just don't want to see any
Yeah.
bad calls cost the team. And it hasn't happened yet, so that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. We will, of course, be back tomorrow to recap the events of Monday and so much more. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. You can send in those mailbag questions or Flyers thoughts on any of our socials at Lockdown Flyers. You can email us at lockdownflyers@gmail or comment over on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey, become a fantasy hockey expert, and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.